Welcome to another episode of the Virginia Investor Podcast. Today's guest has a background in property management, is a real estate agent, is a buy and hold investor, and my friend, Rocio Espericueta. She is also the wife of Carlos Salazar, who was a guest on episode 40. So if at any point you want to hear Carlos's side of things of this journey as well, please give episode 40 a listen. Rocio, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephen. I really appreciate the time and the moment.
I'm excited too. I am looking forward to learning more about you and learning more about your background. I want to start from the beginning. Where did you grow up? What was childhood like?
I grew up in Northern Virginia, Herndon, which is right next to Reston. And I grew up, both my parents came to the United States, early 90s. And I was a bilingual kid. I came and I pretty much spoke Spanish and was in ESL, I think, up until like second grade.
Interesting.
So,
what made your parents come here? Where did they come here from?
We're from Peru. Both
Okay.
of them are. And at that time, there was a lot of domestic terrorism going on in our country.
Wow.
So that's where they decided to
Was
come
it
over.
easy is not the right word, but was it easy to get out of the country and come here, or did they face, what sort of challenges did they face?
No, it wasn't easy because it's a pretty expensive process and whatnot, and the language barrier, and they didn't speak any English. So there were a lot of times where they were scammed with working. Like my dad worked for 6 months and didn't get paid type of situations. Yeah, so it was pretty rough for them at the beginning.
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have 2 younger brothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then were they born at the time when?
No, they were we're 14 and 18 years apart. So I was an only child for about 14 years.
Were you born in America, or did you come over with
No,
them?
I'm from Peru. I was born in Peru.
What age
Yeah.
did you come over?
4.
4. Okay. Do you have any memories from? Probably not.
Some memories, but not too many because I was really, really young.
Right.
Yeah.
So I assume no jobs lined up when they came. Did they
Yeah.
have family over here or anything?
No, nothing.
What brought
Nothing.
them to Northern Virginia?
Well, they came first, actually. I was in Peru with my grandmother for about 2 years. So
Wow.
we were separated while they were getting stable
Holy
and
cow.
transitioning everything. So I think it was 2 years from my dad. No, it was 2 years for both of them, maybe longer for my dad. I think my dad left me when I was 1. And left me is not the right way to say
Right.
it, but So I have a really close bond with my grandmother.
That's insane. Like, I can't imagine. I have young kids. I can't imagine that sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like, that is unbelievable to
Yeah.
try to create a better life from your family. But that means that as a father, you leave your family for years, your 1-year-old daughter, for years to create a better life for the family. And then,
Yeah.
and then your mother leaves, which is insane because I see my wife's bond with the kids, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's just incredible. And so then you were able to come a couple of years later and then join them.
Yeah, exactly.
So from the stories that you've heard, what are some of their experiences? How did they get up and running and more established in America?
They worked a lot and worked to just make ends meet. And then eventually the one thing I will say is that we did have a life-changing moment. So we moved from California to Virginia just based off of friends that my parents had. And they were word of mouth like, hey, there's more work. I think there was like a work situation in California at that time. So we moved to Virginia, and then that's where my dad had just moved, and we ended up in Herndon because that's where the friend lived close by. He was looking for a place to rent, and he was with his friend, and his friend said, hey, there is a real estate office right there. Why don't you go? Of course, not knowing anything. They're like, hey, I need somewhere to live. How does that look like? No English whatsoever. Right. And he happened to walk into a really small brokerage back then. And it was Mrs. Holder, Miss Maddie Holder. She immediately created this bond with my dad.
Interesting.
Yeah. I guess there was something, because again, there was a huge language situation, but there was something about their relationship from the very beginning that she trusted him a lot. She eventually started giving him work and did help, find a home for us. And then what she actually did, which really, changed the trajectory of my life, is that she kept me in the same school district.
Wow.
So we moved when I was young because we would always rent a house that she was a property management and an agent, a realtor. So she actually would say, okay, this lease is expiring. Like, do you want to stay here, or there's another opportunity? Wow. And then there's another opportunity. And she was the one that told my parents, like, hey, you guys should eventually buy. And then that ended happening when I was in high school. So, but I grew up I think we moved like 4 times.
But you were able to stay in the same school.
But I was able to, and it's so, and I don't know if she did this intentionally. I wouldn't put it past her. I would move really close to the school so like I could walk to school.
Wow.
Because she knew my parents worked a lot and whatnot. So.
Wow.
But yeah, she was a pivotal and a huge influence in my family.
Do you still stay in touch with her?
She passed.
Oh, okay.
She did pass. She was really sick. She was older back then, but yeah.
That is incredible. That's an incredible story. And it's amazing how like one person, even in a small brokerage, which, you know, we can relate to, like can make such a big impact on people's lives.
And, you know, I actually know that is something that our lives wouldn't be where they are today if it wasn't for her, in a sense. But she was a very smart and a very, I can say, sassy woman, because she always told my dad, like, you guys have to learn English. You have to simulate. Like, you have to advance. And my mom learned so much from her, just how to, like, have conversations and not be so embarrassed or shy, you know? She would tell him, she's like, if you can't talk, or like, I'll give you the work, but if you know, can't figure out how to get the job and finalize it and, you know, just be open. She's like, then, you know, I'm not going to be able to give you more work. Right. So she like would push them in her own way. And she was the no nonsense type of person, which I loved. That is awesome. So every time my dad is a guy of his word and he showed up, and, you know, they just had this immediate bond and relationship until the very end.
What did your parents do for a living? Like,
so my dad went to school for engineering in Peru, and my mom secretary. And then here, none of that, you know, transfers over. So he's had multiple jobs, but eventually he was in construction. But because of his engineering background, he does a lot of custom work. So he ended up working in DC with think Georgetown, like a lot of custom work. That's his specialty. It's kind of like an art and a craft. But as a kid, he loved art a lot. So he did a lot of oil painting. And I think that's where it kind of meshes with like design and custom work and whatnot.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. That's awesome. What about your mom?
And my mom worked at the European Union Embassy for a really long time.
Okay.
And she did a lot of the housekeeping there at the residence. But then she eventually like grew to run catering events.
Cool.
Awesome. Not really catering events, but events that they would host at the embassies, the residential embassy.
So as a kid, and you have 2 younger brothers, you said?
Yes.
And so you're growing up in Northern Virginia, your parents are working all the time, which is awesome. Like they're just doing great things for their family. Were you into sports? Were you more social? Were you getting in trouble? Like what was your childhood like?
I was not into sports because both my parents worked. My mom did work part-time. She always made sure to be home by the time that I was home. She's a busybody, so there was always things that she was doing and working on. So we weren't into sports. I didn't do any like extracurricular activities. I loved to read. I got into reading. I would get in trouble for reading. I would just, you know, it's a great, you know, thing to get in trouble for.
Yeah, it could be worse.
Yeah, it could be a lot worse. I was pretty quiet. I was pretty like even level-headed.
Right.
Yeah.
Were you focused on getting like really good grades? You good in school?
Yes.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
6th grade, I remember I just won like a whole bunch of awards out of elementary school. And I was always a good student. I wouldn't say I was like, oh my gosh, amazing. But I was always a good student, good at school.
Going into high school, or I should say through high school, were you focused on like 100% going to college and knew what you wanted to do? Or was it just kind of like, what did you have in mind for that?
College. It's what everybody else was doing. I was just like, okay, that's the next step. You know, that's what I'm going to do. And then I met another person that changed the trajectory of my life and my future, who was my art teacher. I always enjoyed art. I always had that since I was little. I just always really enjoyed doing anything crafty, art, drawing. So I didn't have math credits that I needed to take, so I would take art classes. And I really enjoyed them. And I met I believe she was my senior year. Yeah, my senior year art teacher. And I guess she was like, you really enjoy this. Like, you really love this. And it's like turning into a lot more. You're moving really fast. She's like, we could make a portfolio and you could submit it to an art school.
Interesting.
And I was like, oh, like, you think so? Like, you know, you think it's, you know, that it's good, it's decent, it'll work. She said, yeah, absolutely. So we worked for 9 months to build my portfolio. I applied to like JMU, GMU, nursing. I was like, oh, I'll be an obstetrician.
Nice.
I would have never passed biology. I'm just not, science is not my strength. But I did this portfolio, and then I applied to 2 art schools. One was the Art Institute of Chicago, which I got a scholarship for art, and then VCU. So that's how I ended up in Richmond.
Awesome.
I went to art school.
Wow. So that teacher really did change the trajectory, because so many things would have been different if you didn't land at VCU.
Yeah.
What kind of art?
So I majored in fashion design and I minored in business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I was going to live my life in New York as soon as I graduated college. That was my next move.
I think my wife was similar. Like she did like do internships in New York for fashion design and stuff like that.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Awesome. So you land in VCU. Mm-hmm. When you're at VCU, what is that experience like for you?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, it was amazing. It was one of the best moments of my life. I was doing what I loved. I was passionate. I made so many friends. I think that's when I really became more social, you could say.
Yeah.
But I've always maintained the relationships. Like I still have relationships from my friends in California when I was 5. And then I've always kept all of, relationships in touch. But definitely college was just way more open, way more social, more people.
Did you meet Carlos? I can't remember. I know me and Carlos covered it, but did you meet him when you were at VCU or in college?
Yes, I met him 2009. So I don't know. That was my probably junior year of college.
Okay.
Yeah, our junior year.
What were your plans during college? Like, you were going to get out and do this fashion thing, right?
Yeah,
like
I was probably going to move with some friends in New York. Like, we were going to cram into an apartment, and I was going to, like, figure it out.
Was that even, like, the later stages of college, too? Like, even after, like, maybe when you met Carlos, like, things started to change? Or
things changed pretty drastically. So we met, and we dated for 10 months or so. 9, and then we're engaged for 1, and then before a year we were married.
Wow.
Yeah, so we got married pretty quickly, right? And so my parents and his parents were like, oh, okay, like, are you sure? This is really fast. So we grew up, like, we moved out. I still had a year. I took a year of school, and then I had my last year to finish. So he moved here with me.
Right.
And that's when we were like, oh, we have to pay for everything, right? Like, our parents were like, well, you're married, you're an adult now, And so we both had 2 jobs while I was in school, just trying to figure life out.
So what was your plan with fashion then? Like, did you have something where you're like, well, I'm going to leave fashion to get married? Like, obviously you love Carlos. Like, Carlos is an outstanding guy, right? I'm not trying to say anything negative, but you have to make a decision at that point, right? Like, is Carlos moving to New York with you to follow fashion? Like, what was that discussion like? How did that plan change?
I think it changed too, because we are very traditional in that sense, where I wasn't never really thinking about marriage or kids or anything like that, but we had already made a commitment. And so we were like, okay, this is like a family unit, right? Like, what does that look like? So we wanted to be financially stable. That was something that Carlos always wanted from the start.
Yep.
And we're both have a very high work ethic. Like, we both enjoy what people call work. To me, it's subjective.
Right.
Work is what you think it is, Yeah, so I don't know. I think what the reality was, like, we had just graduated school, the debt that was coming with that.
Right.
So he was like, how do we wipe that out? Like, how do we, again, financial stability. So we were both on the same page. The thing with me and him is we've always had the same goals, like the same vision. How we get there is very different, but we've always aligned in that sense. We just hunkered down and worked. And funny enough, I worked for a hospitality company here in Richmond, and it was my second job at a front desk. And then they waited till I graduated. I got promoted, and then I got promoted again. So we stayed here for about 3 years, I think. And then I was going to go into the hospitality business. And then we decided that we had been here for 2 to 3 years. Life was moving really slow for us compared to what it was in DC and where we were from. So we were like, let's go back home and like really like develop. And that's when I was like, maybe I do art, maybe there's something I can do over there. Right. But again, moving back up there, the cost of living is
Crazy.
Crazy. So then we were like, okay, we have to be realistic. What is it going to take?
Right.
So then that's how I started as a leasing agent for a property management company in DC.
There's one thing you said that's so valuable is like, it didn't matter how you got there. You guys had the same end goal in mind. Like, and that's so important. And same in business relationships, partnerships, spouses, like in so many different ways, you don't need that person. In many cases, you don't want that person to be exactly like you. Like, cause then it's in a business relationship, that person's not necessary then. Right.
Yeah.
But if they think differently and they operate differently, can you know, have different perspectives on things, but the end goal is the same. That's what matters. And so that's really cool that you're able to like identify that we both wanted to land in the exact same spot, and we were okay that we both would take different routes to get there. But as long as we ended that same financial stability, that end goal happens for this family unit, like we're both happy. We're good because we want to be together. We want to be financially stable. And if we hit those two things as a family unit, we're good to go.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
we knew
cool.
that from the start. I was not financially savvy. Money was not talked about in my house. Like, I don't think intentionally, really. I just think it's just culturally, like education, go to school, do your best, right? So when I graduated with all this debt, I had credit cards that they would just give them out like candy at school. And that's when Carlos was like, well, we can't continue like that. I had habits and it was very interesting because we had first gotten married, we were getting to know each other, and then we had to talk about money, right?
Yeah.
Because we were on our own and I had this debt and I wasn't financially responsible. I just didn't know.
Right.
And I was very resistant to it, I think, because it was just habits. I don't think it's because I didn't want to or have the same vision, but I just thought it's not a big deal,
Right.
So it took a while. It took a couple years for me to really understand like what debt is, why we want to like be where we want to be.
Right.
Or how to work that, how to get rid of that.
I think when you're younger, just speaking about my own experiences, I think when you're younger, debt isn't like real. It's just not real.
Right.
What are they going to do?
Yeah.
Like, I don't own anything.
Right.
Like, I never really thought about it from that perspective. Like, I already knew I would pay it. I never thought like I would get away with it. I always paid my bills no matter how young I was. But I think to me, like, you see an unrealistic number in debt that you've never seen before actually in your bank account. And you're just like, whatever, like, this is just what everyone does. It's not real. Like, what's the worst
like
that
I'll
can
get a
happen?
good job. It'll get paid off, not realizing that it was going to take me like 10 years to do that. Right.
Yeah.
So all of that finally, like for me, eventually it came full circle.
Yeah.
And then we bought our first house when we were 25 in Maryland. So we moved back up to, get our careers kind of moving and really kind of focusing in, because we both worked 2 jobs here in Richmond, not needing to. We were just like, what are we going to do, you know? And at that point, too, all of my friends are already moving out, like moving away from Richmond, from school.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
So we transitioned back home.
And I remember Carlos talked about how you basically force appreciated him. You helped him become stronger and help him in his career that he was working towards at the time. I think you had made some suggestions for him to try some different things and move forward in his career as well.
Yeah.
But you went to work for a large property management company as a leasing agent, which then I assume, based on my experience, it opens your doors just to how so many different things work in real estate that you wouldn't otherwise see very easily or understand very easily.
Yeah. Again, it was the first company I worked for was a luxury property management company just in DC. And then I moved to the largest property management company, huge company. But again, I guess the theme of my story is people and how they've come into my lives and impacted and changed it. And if it wasn't for the specific bosses like David Raleigh, Noel, like shout out to them because they saw my work ethic, they saw something, and then they invested in me in a lot of, ways to help me get promoted. So I moved up fairly quickly.
That's awesome.
At that first company. And then with the second company, it was the same thing because they had moved over and they brought me over and just kept, I don't know, they just, knew that I was also a person of my word and worked really hard, and they helped me a lot through that journey and like professionalism.
Yeah,
I learned from them.
Was your goal at the time? I would assume it was to just move up the corporate ladder, get do better and better, get promoted, make more and more money through whatever that company or any other like corporate avenue that you had.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
that was really it.
what at some point that changed or stopped, or that journey moved a little bit? What happened there?
It was the kids.
Okay.
The kids came into play, and not knowing what I know now, I thought it was the industry that like I was just kind of over everything. And with the kids, it becomes hectic. I was always a working mom. I just love to work. That's just who I am. But once the kids came into play, and then time, I don't know I remember a moment in time where I was in the car and I was barely staying awake, and I was driving them, and I was like, this is so dangerous. Like, this is not good, because it took an hour to get into the city. So
Right.
the kids, we had to leave the house by 6, the DC traffic. And then I was the last one to pick them up, almost always.
Right.
So I was like, well, the daycare is raising my kids.
Right.
And I'm spending maybe 2 hours if I'm lucky at night with them. Looking back on it, I pushed it all in like the job, and I don't want to do this anymore. And now I've had a full circle moment where actually like the thing that I loved the most about the job was the teams.
Right.
The industry itself, and but it was actually the teams that I built and helped also develop was really like my passion.
Right.
So it was the time with my children that I was like, okay, I think we need to change something for sure.
It's cool that you recognize you could change something, because I think many people would be in that situation, just be like, "This is life, man. Why do I have to work so much? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that?"
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like, it might be a temporary sacrifice you have to make if you have kids, to work that many hours and work multiple jobs. I understand that, especially like single moms and things like that. Like 100%, you got to do what it takes to take care of your family. But like in your situation, there is an opportunity for you to make a difference and find a different avenue, especially with how professional you are and how successful you are and how you've built and led teams and stuff. Like, you have the capability and the opportunity to see your kids more. And I think some people will make excuse to be like, well, this is just how life is. I don't know how to change it. Like, I probably can't change it. I need to now I'm making a good paycheck and making more money I've ever made. I can't step away from this. Or I'm scared to like change and try to do something different just because it's a risk. And so it's cool that you identified that maybe as much as you want to be financially stable, there are more important things. Like, as long as I guess financial stability is really important, but as much as you and Carlos were focused on making money, it was more about the stability than becoming like super wealthy, because then you wouldn't care about the time with your kids as much, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it's cool that you were able to identify that. And then what decision did you make that came out of that?
So at that point, my company was investing a lot of research, own funds into Richmond. And I was like, that's very familiar. Like, I know Richmond, right? And I remember feeling it like a little bit more slower pace. Like, I was like, maybe I could get my time back if I moved back then. And at first, the idea was to just move to Richmond when they started opening up properties here. Turns out Scott's Addition is where they blew up and, had parts of their investments in. But that's really where I was still like, oh, it was familiar. And I remember Carlos saying, like, I would never move down there again. Like,
really?
Yeah, he's like, this is where we're from. I mean, he was born in D.C., always been a city guy. But the kids changed that for him too, right? I'm like, well, now, like, how do we do this faster? Like, how do we buy our time back so that we can get, spend more time with them as they get older, because I don't see a way out of this.
Right.
And so that really, really started. I kept talking to him, and then he was in accounting and had seen a lot of real estate that was put right in front of him because he was in public accounting. And so he really started looking into how people build wealth. And he would come home and I was like, you love real estate. Like, I don't even hear you talking about accounting. Like, this is all about real estate. So I told him, I was like, we're young. The kids are very little and it's very hard. One of the things that stood out to me as you were saying, like, I recognized that time was important and what it takes is that now I know what it is. Back then, I think it was more of a feeling, but I was like, I know I can work hard. I know Carlos works hard. I know that if I make a sacrifice temporarily, like, I will have results, even if it's failure. Like, failure to me is not failure. Like, there's always a lesson behind it. Right. It's harder to swallow and be okay with that with children, but I knew that we were really a tight-knit family at that point, and I was like, he has my back, I have his back.
That's awesome.
Like, if all else fails, like we start all over again and we go back home, and we have built such a good resume, right? Like we just pick up where we left.
That's awesome.
So it's very much a like bet on yourself. Right?
Yeah.
Sacrifice first, do the things that you need to do, because our lifestyle was we had to just very minimal, like super. And with kids, it's hard, you know? We were like, we have a goal, we are going to do this. And we just focused and
That's
worked.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It says a lot when you're willing to bet on yourself and your partner as well. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
When you moved back to Richmond with kids, I assume you had a job lined up, and then did Carlos go straight into real estate?
Yes. Okay. So he left his job while we were still home, and it took a little bit of like talking to him, but I was like, hey, I'll hold down the fort. Like, we'll figure this out. I actually still worked for 6 months and had to commute down to Richmond. Oh, wow. Yeah. And it took 6 months. I was going to do it for a year. And then after 6 months, I was like, I can't do it. You know, it's a lot. It was a lot. Yeah. And it was also during COVID. So it was a really tough time where it's like, should I really be spending my time commuting and doing all of that when like my whole family is now here and we're doing this thing, you know? So then I actually ended up working for CoStar. Yeah. I got a job here, and then I worked with them for a little over a year. Given
your parents' sacrifice and what they did for you when you were much younger, did they weigh in heavily on like your decisions to move to Richmond or not, or keep your corporate job or not? Like, or were they just like, we're betting on you too?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
My parents did not. It's a very trusting relationship, I guess. Yeah. They're just like, you have always, you know, worked hard and excelled. So whatever it is that you guys decide to do, they always would give advice here or there, but it was never a like, they're always just cheering us on.
Yeah.
Always.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When Carlos is going into real estate, did you guys understand the concept of financial freedom at this point? Not just financial stability, but like financial freedom and investing and buy and hold and burr and all this different stuff. Like, were you guys just fully getting into it?
He did, and I didn't.
Okay.
Funny enough, I was the one that was like, go, do it, figure it out. And back to believing in yourself, I really believe in him.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, it's going to make me teary-eyed.
That's all right.
I really do believe. I don't know how, but, you know. Whew. Sorry.
You look back at some of this stuff, and it's pretty incredible. Like, you have a lot going on today. And when you're in the day-to-day, it's hard to see how far you've come. And then when you look back and you talk about it, especially someone that you care about and you witness what they've done. Yeah. Like, you guys probably don't, I'm assuming you guys don't sit around and think about this often and talk about these journeys and reflect. And when you're in a situation like this, you think about how far you've actually come, and the sacrifices you've made to do it is pretty incredible. Yeah. Yeah. No, he's been a great partner. He's a great person. I believe in him so much. So I knew that he was just so bright and, you know, such a good person. So I was fully in. I was like, what can I do to support whatever we need to do? Right. So that's what I did. I, like I said, wasn't super financially savvy. Our goal at first was buying a rental for 1 year for the next 10 years. And by the time we're 40, we're at 10, and that brings us to a great place with our kids and the future of our family and college. And I just thought about it like that surface level. Right. And not until he really got into it, and it like just brought something different. Like, there was just always a hunger, I think, that was never satisfied. Right. Until he really started working on his own and doing things for himself and for us, really. He does a lot of it for our family. Yeah. And so once I saw him like thriving, then that's when when I did leave my job, that's when I fully immersed myself into it. That's awesome. And just more of, okay, what does this look like? Like, what is the idea of financial freedom? Because for us, it wasn't, or at least for me, it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I'm going to retire at 45 and I'll be great, because it's just not in me. I'm like, I don't know when I'll stop, But it was more of like stability for my kids. Yep. I guess I grew up not seeing that. So I was like, well, how do I, get past that? And that was really my first motivator, was just to be able to sleep at night and like, we're good. Right. Yeah. It's similar for me in the way that like, I would love to be financially free and independent, but it's not to stop working. It's just so that I don't have to, and I know my family's taken care of and things like that.
Yeah.
I guess I would assume so. If Carlos is diving in on the real estate investing side, you're kind of bringing in the paycheck and stuff like that to make sure the family's taken care of. He, I would assume, is like, and I've talked, obviously, again, episode 40 is his whole journey for the audience if they want to go back and listen. But he's likely diving into all kinds of podcasts and books and learning like as much as he can. You don't necessarily have the insight on like exactly, maybe at this time, like exactly what a BRRRR is or what it means or like all the financing metrics of it and everything like that.
No. My job was, it just, as you make more money, there's more time, more problems, more things. Right. So my job was not an 8-hour thing. And I've always been, again, I like to leave. And my experience in CoStar was great. I had great coworkers and my boss, and I loved the people around me. So it wasn't hard to leave at that point because I was running back into the, like, I'm just working all day. And since it was during COVID and I was working from home, there was no, like, it ends at 5. I would just keep doing the reports and prepare for the next day and so on and so forth. So I didn't really, like, I just had to do my part and, just do a good job and make sure that I could have the income for our family.
The goal was to get one house a year for the next, like, 10 years or whatever, right? To X amount of years. But you guys crushed that.
Yes.
Right? So how did that happen?
We just put our head down and we worked, and Carlos did a really great job. He is not so much of a book person. He is more of a audible, but he's a people person. And so he would network all the time. And I was just, go do your thing. Like, I got the kids, like, and he'd always come back with just new things, new ideas. And we would both get excited. We were like, oh, that's great. Like, people are actually doing this, right? It's very different than when you listen to a podcast or a book or something, but when you see it in front of you and see it locally, and we're so lucky to have such a great network of people in Richmond in the investment world for sure. Right. So that was really where we got a lot of our energy and I you could say like ideas from, and then we just did. Right. We're just very much like, just Nike it. You just got to do it. Right? You don't think about it too much. Like, it just has to get done. Right. So that's just how we've always implemented that. And it is that simple. It's people and action.
Right.
Like,
a lot of people miss the execution part because everyone listens to books and podcasts and stuff like that. And you see the same people at the same meetups and they still haven't done a deal or whatever. But you guys were fully committed and you guys executed and figured out. And the relationships, the network that you guys got in, I mean, I would assume that, like, while Carlos initially did not want to move back down to Richmond, he's probably extremely excited and happy that he did, right? Because I can't really speak for other markets, but I assume not every market has the same kind of abundance mindset like Richmond does, right?
Definitely not Maryland, where we were from. We explored it. We had actually bought our first house, a couple of houses he had in Maryland too, but it was very different. It was very different.
So you eventually left CoStar to get into real estate, right? What was some of the harder aspects of leaving a corporate environment and working for yourself?
Everything was so hard. Like, now you know my story. So I was school, good grades, public school. You're in an environment where you're just taught to just do what's in front of you, right? And not really think outside the box. My school was great. I had AP credits, good grades, like educated, but there was that extra factor, which is actually what Carlos is, how he thinks first. I had to untrain myself to do that. So coming from these jobs that I had been with for so long, and everything I had to do was always in front of me. I always had the SOPs in front of me. I've always had the trainers in front of me. I've always had the help in front of me. I've always had, somebody, I would do the hiring and the firing, but the ads, all those things were in place, right? And it was super valuable because when you look at it with a different set of eyes, you can see how much you've learned and you can take from that experience. Right. Yeah. But in the moment, I didn't know I needed to do that.
Right.
I was just like, what is this? Like, I came in and then Carlos was like, all right, so you're going to call wholesalers. And I was like, what? I was like, okay. I lasted like a week just on the phones, and again, like the structure that I had was not there. And it was really hard for us to, we're married, but like working together with nothing really laid out and trying to figure it out. For
How
sure.
did you make those first steps? Because I would assume like you obviously come from this large structure where you have all these SOPs and policies and processes and everything like that. Then you go to nothing. A lot of people, again, would have that paralysis and just kind of sit there and be like, well, I don't really like, no matter how hard you work, some people can't get it through their mind of like, what's the first step? Like, what do you have to, and obviously there's some sort of action that you have to take. That's not take action, whether wrong or right. Like if it's a wrong action, you at least learn from it. Like you can't just sit still. So how did you get past that roadblock of just having nothing in front of you and having to figure out how to build that structure? How did you approach that?
I honestly looked at going back to work as a failure, not because working for anybody or a corporate office is a failure, a good thing, but because I knew I didn't push myself. So I was like, if I go back to that, I failed. And there's my, I guess, competitive side that doesn't really come out, but I was like, I can't, like, I've come this far.
Right.
And then I don't even remember where I heard it, but it was the most commonly thing that you hear of in the entrepreneurial world is be uncomfortable and like you're in the right place.
Right.
So I swallowed that. And I remember I'd wake up, I was like, I don't like this feeling. This feeling stinks, but I'm just going to suck it up and I'm going to do it. Like, I'm just going to continue to do the thing that I don't like doing. And eventually with time, because I literally just took that and put it in the back of my head of how much like I didn't like it or how lost I was. And I started doing things. Then very quickly I started seeing like the results, right? The aftermath of.
And that helps a lot.
Yes.
Like it helps with your confidence. And everything.
But really it's all mental.
I assume that just like everything in life, like it almost every, so it takes a level of humility, I think, to allow yourself to get started, because you are this A player that leaves this environment, that knows everything, right? That trains other people, that hires and fires. And like, you are the go-to person for everything on this team. You're the A player. You know everything you can do. Very little wrong. Maybe you make a mistake now and then, but everyone comes to you because you are the person.
Right.
And then you leave that environment and you're essentially nothing. Like you're just not adding value.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're doing. There's no structure. Like you're just kind of there. And if anything, you're probably taking other people's time by asking questions and getting in the way and tripping up or making mistakes and stuff like that. So there has to be some level of humility of like being able to accept that to get started. Because if you're not willing to accept that, then you're not going to make that next step if you're not allowing yourself some grace to make mistakes and be like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
Like I'm not an A player here. I don't know what I'm doing, and now I need to learn.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I will say the other thing that comes to mind with that is I have always looked back, and I'm a very observant person. I will be quiet in the room, but I'm just observant. It's just by nature. And I've grown up and just I learned by seeing other people all around me all the time, whether it's family, friends, coworkers, bosses, leaders. Because I am that way, I'm also that way with myself. And I remember I would sit there and I would go through like, I don't know how many times I quit on Carlos. Like, I can't even keep count. I do remember then time going by and me looking back and saying, I'm playing the blame game. Like, I really am genuinely feeling like he doesn't have it together, or all the things, right? All the problems, all the things. There's no structure. You put excuses in your head. But the fact that I could go back and analyze those thoughts and feelings, I was like, oh, well, that's not true. Like, that's not right. That's all based off of my emotion. That was the other thing that helped me, is the like actually dissecting my behavior. You
articulated that really well, because I feel like that is one of the things that I can do really well to keep myself from making excuses or quitting too early or something like that.
Yeah.
But I've never really known like how to describe it or explain it. I am very aware internally of like my thoughts, and when I start to feel some kind of way, I can sit down and literally like dissect what's going in my head and why I'm feeling that way. You sort of detach from that, and I come to like a rational conclusion of like I can step out of whatever emotion I'm feeling, detach from it, come to a rational conclusion and then make the right decision. And sometimes it takes months to get out of whatever funk that is and to kind of dissect what's going on, because you're not always aware of it. And as I get older and more experienced, I sort okay, I've been feeling weird for a day or two, and I don't let it get to months, right? And I try to understand if that's a real feeling or if it's just something that needs to be dealt with or unpacked or what. It's really interesting that you said that, because again, we were talking about this before we recorded about you can start rationalizing things. And when you start rationalizing things, it gives you the out to quit, essentially. Like it gives you the out and it makes you feel good about it, right? And it's really interesting. One of the most obvious signs of this is when you watch, I'm not sure if this is exactly right, but there's a TV show called Alone. And I think
we watched that with our
kids. It's the show when like they drop you off and no one is around you, and they just see how long you can last. Sometimes it's 90 days, 100 days in these extreme environments, but they can't talk to anyone. They have no connection to the outside world, and they film themselves and stuff like that, create their own shelter, find their own food, everything. And it's terrible environments. But when you hear them talk, and I'm not taking anything away from the struggle that they have, because I would not be able to do that. But it's really interesting listening to them talk, because they begin to rationalize things.
Right.
And they start to rationalize why it's a good, and it often has nothing to do with not finding food or the extreme negative whatever degree weather or their shelter leaking or catching on fire or something like that. It often is like, well, I did something about my kids or something about my wife or something, but they start to like rationalize how, their mom was sick and maybe it makes sense for them to go back, but that wasn't the main deal, like when they first came out, right? But they knew that they had the same amount of information.
Yeah.
And so they start to rationalize these things, and then you can tell when people are starting to quit, but to them, it makes perfect sense. I've also known guys who went through special operation training. There's one guy who I respect greatly, but he went through one branch of training, very extremely difficult training. He was at a very hard moment in the training and told himself that his mom probably misses him. And she was alone in some capacity, maybe divorced or something like that. And he really felt like it was more important for him to leave that training and go be with her. About a day after that, once he left the training and got warm and dry and got some food, like the biggest mistake he'd ever made in his life, right? Because his mom was fine. Right. And she would have been fine for a number of more weeks during that training. Yeah. But it was a rationalization to allow him to quit. There's a number of times that will happen in investing in business. And if you're not aware of that, you'll quit and you'll always feel okay with it.
Right. And the one thing to also highlight about that is that always happens. You don't just go from it and you learn from it. And no, your mind will always try, no matter what 100%. It is. You think you have a great brand new business and a great new idea or a new thing that you're starting or whatever it is, that always comes back. Right. Most recently, actually thinking about this podcast, I was like, but isn't that life? Right. Don't hard things happen? So in a way, if you treat it as one of those things where it's like, I need to mentally overcome this, whatever happens in your life, and sometimes struggles could be really health, right? Like bad accidents or whatnot, you overcome them and you think like physically you overcome those things, but that's life. We're always going to have them. So instead of making it rationalizing those things and making the excuses for it, it's like, no, life is giving me another problem or another thing in my way. And my purpose is to grow from it and move beyond it. Yeah.
I have, over the past few years, actually probably closer to 10 years ago, flipped a switch in my brain through some training that I had and some people that I hung out with, that essentially they would always say champions love adversity or champions welcome adversity.
Yeah.
And so during the training, you'd actually sing a song and say, we like it, we love it, we want some more of it. And it would be at some really dark moments, right?
Yeah.
But imagine saying that in your darkest moment, just saying freaking bring it.
Right.
I got it. So if you kind of have that mindset to where you have a really challenging moment in life, it's not necessarily going to make it easier.
No.
But it's coming, you welcome it, you're going to deal with it, and you're going to keep rolling, right? Instead of oh, again, woe is me, feeling sorry for yourself.
Exactly.
You say, hey, I'm a champion, I love adversity, I'm putting myself in hard situations so that I can accomplish more in life or make a bigger impact in life or support my family. And I think if you think that way about adversity and challenges, it's helpful.
I 100% agree with that.
Speaking of adversity and challenges, you and Carlos are opposites in the business world, from what I understand.
Complete opposites. Yeah.
How do you, and you love each other very much.
Yes.
How do you not hurt that relationship when you're in business together?
So we did learn, we follow EOS, right?
Oh, that's helpful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Super, very, very helpful. But really the person that opened our eyes to this truly in a business sense is Rich Lennon. And I think that if it weren't for that system, and again, really learning what that means in an organization, I don't think we would have gotten here as fast as we did.
Yeah.
It came really early on in our business. And that's when we realized okay, these are the verticals. This is what you do. This is what you do. This is what you do. And you don't cross into each other's lanes.
Right.
Now, I love it. I don't want to cross Carlos's lane. Carlos's loves to cross all the lanes, But it was very helpful because he had to untrain himself from wanting to be, he's a visionary.
Right.
So he's the visionary. I'm the integrator. That's what resulted out of that. Now, I can lean into a visionary, but by nature, I'm more of an integrator,
right,
for sure. And so when we identified that and we identified what we were going to do in our business, it just felt like everything just opened up. The clarity, night and day. Yeah. And then for me personally, I finally felt like there was a place for me in what we were doing, right? I finally felt okay, my skill sets aren't that they're not valuable in the entrepreneurial world. It's just this is how I make this work. And it was a very key component, I think, that really helped us accelerate as well. Because for me, a lot of it is structure. So I was able to create that structure slowly as things started evolving, right? The business is starting evolving, but also for me, it's people.
Right.
I'm very much in the whole people atmosphere. Abundance and all of those things is where I thrive and what fills my cup. I hadn't found what filled my cup up until most recently.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It takes a while to find it, but
Yeah.
not giving up gets you there, right? You just
Right.
keep pushing forward.
Right.
So at the time, I assume somewhere around this time, you and Carlos are building a buy and hold portfolio. You're getting substantially more than one house a year at this point due to networking and your relationships and whatever wholesalers you guys are meeting and whatever activities you are doing to buy these properties. So you're building this awesome portfolio and you have operations that come along with that. I'm interested to learn, what was the pain point or the breaking point or the moment in time where you guys said, we need to go speak to Rich about EOS? Or did it just kind of come up naturally in conversation that you guys were having a difficult time and then Rich was there because of your relationship with Rich?
I don't think it was very specific, we need help and this is
Got
there.
it. Okay.
It was more of we fell into the community and then we were well, this looks cool. We'd like to learn how we can, knowing us, better ourselves and grow. So we took it more as an educational and community building thing. And then it turned out to be a very pivotal time for us in our business.
How did you guys, I know, or at least I think I know, but for the audience, how did you meet Rich?
At Ring, at his networking group. Yeah.
And then is that what developed the friendship and trust and ability to trust his advice on EOS and visionary and integrator and things like that?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how long, but we had known him maybe for a year or so. And I think there's definitely a, how can we help somebody who's also giving us information, has welcomed us and is open and is sharing. And it was just being around like-minded people,
right,
where we felt okay, what value can we provide? What support can we give? And sometimes it's so hard because when you're I'm this little, I just have 2 rentals, it's hard to figure out what your value is, but there's always
100%.
something you have that nobody else has that you can contribute to, especially if they're, I think it's reciprocal. So that's really how we kind of focused and built that relationship. And with a lot of people, not just Rich, but just with everybody that was like-minded in that sense. We were like, great, well, this is how we are as well. So there's a lot of sharing.
Yeah, it's awesome that a lot of people think you go to meetups just to find deals, but you have benefited so much from meetups like Ring and others, where you obviously have lifelong friendships, but you get business advice and all kinds of advice from people who scale and how to scale and what mistakes not to make and things like that. It's a great environment to be in.
Yeah, absolutely.
As the visionary and integrator, Carlos is the visionary, you're the integrator. What do those roles, you don't have to get too specific unless you want to, but what generally do those roles look like between the two?
So he is going to be more, if you think about like the hunter gatherer, he's the hunter, I'm maintaining. I'm pretty much there's a few different businesses and I get them going, like, and maintaining them and making sure they're operational. But now, as we have scaled with people, it's not a manager position. It's making sure that the organization is working as it should. People aren't crossing their, over to the other lanes. And also making sure that you're very detailed and focused as to like the vision that the visionary has, because sometimes we can have 5 visions in a week, and I'm like, no, we can't do 5 visions in a week, Carlos.
Typical visionaries.
Yeah, we just have like we have the one right now plus the other, all the businesses. Yeah. So there's always that. I think the most important part for me as an integrator is to let the visionary vision. Like at first, I feel like I didn't really realize like what the role was, but I was like, no, like go out there, figure out, like, let your idea follow through. And then I'm always like listening and paying attention. So then when it gets brought back to me, I'm like, all right, well, this is what I have. Right. And I talk it through, and then we can meet somewhere in the middle where it's like, yeah, let's do this, or no, let's not do this. Yeah. But at first I was always like, no, like don't do that. And I realized that the more that I let him, do his thing and he lets me do my thing, then there's more harmony.
So that's sort of like a checks and balance system where like the visionary is going to go look at 800 shiny objects and want to bring them all into the business or start 800 different companies and do all these different things. But then the COO or the integrator is going to look at that and be like, this is our workload now. This is what we have. Here's what's possible. Here's the money that we're making on this or not making on this. And this is, maybe you have a great idea, but why don't we hold off in 6 months and then we can see what it looks like at that point. And then in 6 months, we all know like that you might realize it wasn't that great of an idea, right? The excitement dies after whatever conversation you had. And a week later, you're like, oh, okay, no, we don't need to do that. But so when he brings all those ideas back to you, you can sort of chew through them and say like, hey, great idea. This is awesome. Super exciting. Here's what we're doing right now. Here's how everything kind of organized sorts itself. The processes we have, the people we have, the ability or capability we have. Why don't we wait 3 months and like revisit this? Or here's how we can integrate this if we wanted to right now. Yeah.
It depends on what it is. If it aligns with the current business that we're in, I'm like, all right, well, I usually have a 3-month rule for a lot of things. It takes about a quarter for you to see this, especially, and it's important that you take the data, right? You're tracking everything. Right. So if there's ever a pivot within a business that's like new or could excel us, or actually I'm seeing that it's just maybe getting out of a business kind of, or not in line. It's just let's give it the 3-month rule. I don't necessarily tell him like you have let's just play this out. But in my head, I'm like, okay, let's aim to see if we're able to, we can manage doing this change. Let's track it. Let's see how it goes. It's not something huge to, not work out. So I think there should be some flexibility if it makes sense. Right. But it's always, for me at least, like a time limit, and just to make sure that it's measurable.
That's smart. Because I can integrate, but I'm more of like the visionary side. I prefer that more. But there's so much whiplash involved, and I will make decisions very quickly and have a lot of ideas and talk to a lot of people. Yeah. And it's very easy for me to come back to the team with this idea and say, all right, let's get started on this now. And if there's no one on the team that says like, let's think about this, let's pause, let's just all consider and meet about this next week. And I'm like, next week, let's make a decision now, Yeah. But like that week pause could be like, wait, I've actually now had some time to think about it. we actually don't need to meet on it, whatever. And I don't do that still.
Yeah.
I learned that early on that was a
Yeah,
fault that I
yeah.
had, right? And
Yeah.
it could affect the team if you do that too much, but it's great to have a role in place that kind of keeps that in check as well. But it still allows the company to do awesome, creative, new things,
Yeah.
but also within the scope of what the company should be doing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's super important for us because as we've grown these businesses, it's like, all right, we're of a little bit of different mindsets when it comes to that, where I'm like, we should really narrow down and do one thing and then do that thing, really like go at that thing. And he likes to diversify. And I think it's because, all these ideas and they do well. Yeah. So like to his defense, I understand it. But the bandwidth, right, like that you have to do all of these things, that's where we're kind of marrying right now, where we're like, all right, there is this and there is that. And I just want to make sure like we're not totally going off
I think
track.
In my opinion, the time is key. The time that you set on it is key. And the reason I say that is because I'm exactly how you just described as Carlos. Like, and the dangerous thing is that you guys can execute. So like if he has an idea, you guys can do it. How crazy, hey, let's start a skydiving company. Like you guys could do that. You guys would figure out how to go get the licenses and do that in a couple of months, right? And so it's dangerous when you have that ability to execute and put processes and structure in place. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But the time is what kills that, I think is the delineator between being just really excited about a possible idea to it actually being a good idea. Because I've noticed that over time, this excitement about this idea might die. And you realize, wait a second, we have a really good core business. This actually is more than I want to deal with. Like, let's just stick with the plan. And so you are creating some sort of buffer and allowing that to like, if he's still really fired up about it 2 months later, then maybe you have something. But I actually think it would be rare if he has some great idea and then 2 months later he has the same amount of passion about it outside of the core business.
Very rare.
Yeah. And so I just say that from my own experience. Like I have all these ideas, but if I have a time limit on it, then I'm like, all right, I kind of snap back in it. Sort of like that thing we talked about earlier. I digest everything in my head, and if I have more and more time to do that, I realize we're really good at property management. We should probably just focus on property management. Why do we need to go do all of this extra stuff when we are really good at property management?
Yeah.
So you've grown into other businesses. You eventually got licensed. Yeah. And so you do the retail sales side of things. You built a team, which is awesome. And that's right on par with what you know to do. Tell me about that. What was that decision like?
That decision actually came because I was realizing that my cup wasn't full. Like I had started a property management company just for our things because that was growing and I came from that background. So I was like, why not just make it work like how it should, right? And then I actually did some Airbnbs because I thought the creative side of that would come out. Those did really well and whatnot. And we still have some of them. And so I was like, okay, I thought that was going to be it, like some kind of design thing. And then I was like, it's not. It's, like I'm good at this thing. We're good at this thing. But like, what is Rocio? Like, what is Rocio doing? Because we have our goals together, right? And it's so interesting how the roles switched where he went some time trying to figure out like what he really wanted to focus on and do and grow, like motivate him, right? To work harder, learn more, all the things. And then for me, it was the other way around where like I had known this thing, I was really good at it, I had a good job, and then I was like, I don't know where I'm going, just myself within our vision.
Right.
So what does that process look like? So we actually, I felt like because I am pretty factual, I was like, okay, this makes sense. A property management company that I can eventually grow, or it's something in real estate with my license, because at that point, for me, the design or that part of it just, I realized wasn't really it for me.
Right.
I thought it was because I enjoyed art, but that's a hobby. It's a passion. Right. It's not what I'm really, really good at.
Good at
follow
it,
your
but
passion.
It's outside of real estate, technically.
Exactly.
I mean, you have a design company or you have your 3 real estate businesses. Like when you break it down, you're doing design within real estate, but it's a design company.
So then I analyzed those 2 things and it came back to the uncomfortable feeling, where it's like I wasn't really comfortable being a realtor and agent because I hadn't done that full time. I always was on the investor side.
Right.
So I was like, okay, we're doing good, we're thriving, but I was like, but what's the challenge?
Yeah, interesting.
Right. And so
awesome.
that's how I've always operated. Like I wouldn't call it boredom because I can do a lot of the same thing and tweak it and make it better or maintain it. But I would call it like, what's the next hardest thing?
Right.
I think I've always thought that way.
Yeah, champions love adversity. Like, I mean, you're running towards it. You're saying,
Yeah.
like, all right, there's always going to be plenty to do on the operations side and investments and stuff. That will never end, right?
Yeah.
And that can get pretty complicated, especially as you guys scaled your buy and hold and now you have Airbnbs.
Yeah.
And so you could stay there.
Right.
But you're like, there's more. There's more you can do. There's more you can accomplish. There's probably a bigger impact you can make. And you also know that's probably going to be painful to get into and get off the ground, but
For sure.
it doesn't bother you because you work hard.
It's a whole nother world. It's a whole nother connection. It's a whole nother networking. It's just, it's very different, right? And you start back at zero, right? I don't transact retail. Like I just our renovations and investor heavy, and that was pretty much it. So I thought also going into it, I was like, oh, okay, great. Like now I'm older and I've gone through this whole process and I've identified that people are it. And so I was like, okay, so then it's probably maybe helping people through the sale of real estate. Come to find out that what it really is back to the team. And I didn't realize it till I had my very first official hire about 2 years ago, where she very much reminded me of that first person, Mrs. Holder, who impacted me because my dad showed up. And so this person that worked with us showed up. And I just immediately, we just started pouring right back. And then that's when the more that she showed up, the harder she worked, the more it just took me into like my high school teacher, right, who changed also in 9 months. And then, the bosses that I had in my whole career with property management who really saw my work ethic and took me along this journey because I showed up. And so that was the impact. That to me is why there's a team. So it's not really the number. I think I'm really fortunate enough to have started a whole new business that I don't really know how it's, you don't really know how it's going to work, but it's my time to create that impact. Right. And the average age of our team is like 25, which is wild.
That's awesome.
So not intentionally, it's all been recruited very organically, but it's very exciting because they are fueling us back up.
Right.
And so then now I really feel like it's come full circle, and I'm just paying it forward. Yeah.
It sounds like you guys aren't just pushing quantity of transactions onto your team. It sounds like it's very important for you guys to teach your team about financial freedom and getting investments and stuff like that. And, and that's awesome because now you're not only just helping them have a great career, but you're also saying, hey, there's more to this life.
There's a whole other world. Exactly. And the one thing that, and I mean, I don't mean this in a negative way at all, but being a realtor and having your license and all of that, it's great, but it shouldn't be a job. Right. So for the younger college generation, a lot of our teams were like, this is a tool. So how are you going to use this tool to create your income, to create your wealth, to allow you to do and change the trajectory of your life?
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
A great perspective to have on it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And again, nothing wrong with being a real estate agent. I respect that industry for sure. That section of real estate. That's how me and Carlos look at a lot of things, right? Like what lever can you pull, and when do you pull it is the journey. But you have to really look for those levers. You have to create them, right? Getting your license, going to networking events. Just things that your skill sets can give you different levers that other people don't have. And so them being placed in front of you is not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
what's next for you, Carlos, and the team?
What's next for us is more impact for me. It's more growth. I want to create good quality agents. And I'm really focused on our culture. We are a very collaborative team and support each other a lot within our office. And it used to feel so small, and now we're 11 in. So I'm like, whoa, we're, it's getting kind of tight. which is great. You know, my vision is not to have 50, 100 agents just quite yet. I am very cautious of the growth and having it be too fast.
For culture purposes, like
for culture purposes, for sure. I think the systems and all of that can keep up. Quality does sometimes, you know, it doesn't really come that fast.
Right.
So splitting that time apart. But what I'm starting to realize is that we're like in this hairy phase of like, you know, the team is growing and we now need more hands, more people, and the people are also coming. So it's like, oh, no, like we can kick it up. Like,
right.
you know, it feels right. A year ago me is like easy, like
right.
be careful. Now I'm like, oh, well, we can,
right.
we are seeing that things are popping up now where we can now start hiring the help, you know, to make us even do more and grow more.
Yeah. And you're still building the portfolio as well.
Yeah,
right?
that is always, so that's the two worlds that's more of Carlos's side. And I still operate all of our property management things. I will say that that's probably the hardest thing where I want to focus on the realtor, the agency side of things. But it's just in that phase where it's like, you're big enough, but you're not, you know, like, well, I don't know. That's really the next challenge, I think, for us is just like, all right, how do we bump it up a little bit where we don't feel like we're everywhere?
Yeah, well, I mean, you get your team in place, probably a different like employment setup, but you get your team in place on the brokerage side, and you get a team in place on the management side, and then you're overseeing the overall systems and not kind of in the weeds on the property management side. And then Carlos gets a team on the acquisitions or whatever, even though his thing is like, he can still have the relationships. I mean, like one thing about building this team, I was worried like, well, I'll never talk to anyone again, you know, and I love talking to people and like building relationships and hanging out with people.
Yeah.
You know, it definitely slowed down because I used to go to all the meetups and stuff like that. But I still am able to stay in touch and meet new people and you know, drop into meetups from time to time and stuff. So what is your thought? I'm really curious about this. What is your thought on legacy for you and your family? How do you look at legacy? Some people say like, you know, they're not focused on legacy yet, or legacy means this or that. Or I think Augie Bilot said something really interesting about legacy is legacy starts now before you die. Like it's like his legacy was, I'm going to say it way worse than how he said it. Basically like he's working on his legacy now. Meaning like legacy is what he's doing while he's alive, and it's not like some after death thing like what many people think of. So when you think about legacy or people talking about legacy, what do you want people to think about your work, or your kids think about your work and your sacrifice that you and Carlos have made, et cetera?
So I think it's important to define legacy. So for me, it's what you're going to be remembered for, right? What you leave behind. And for me, it's kindness. It's really that simple. I'm
gonna cry. Get you again.
Yeah. Well, because a lot of people have been kind in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about the agent in Northern Virginia that looked out for your family, looked out for your mom and dad. Like it all started with her.
The names of my company are named after her.
Really? So what's the name of your company?
A Holder's Home.
Oh, okay.
Holders is Mrs. Holder.
Yeah.
Holder's Home Management.
That's legacy.
Yeah.
Like that's the definition of legacy right there. Yeah. So you're out to do something similar. I mean, you're already doing it. Like you're already starting on that mission. But like when you think about legacy, you think about her and people like her that was able to leave behind like that impact that she made on you and your family. And you now have that ability. You've created that ability to do that for
it's
others.
what I've seen. It's what I've seen that has made me been a part of me and a big part of who I am. And I think we all have the power to do that in whatever way that we can. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a financial thing. You know, people are important. They're what makes our businesses run. So I lead with people first. Yeah. And I just want my girls to be kind and pass that forward. And that's really what I'm remembered for.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you were giving advice to someone, which you do often, on how to get started in real estate, let's say real estate investing for the purpose of this podcast, to get started in real estate investing, they haven't made any moves yet. What advice would you give them generally?
They haven't made any moves. Are they like, do they have analysis paralysis, or?
We'll just say like, they're at the point of, I am interested in investing in real estate, but I've done nothing yet. Meaning like maybe they've dabbled in some podcasts or books, but like that's it. They haven't
That's
made
it.
any moves after that.
Yeah.
Where should they go next?
It's being around the individuals that are doing it. Yeah. I always say this to my team, where it's like the answer is very simple. It's not rocket science. It's being around the people, surrounding yourselves by that network, and then providing some kind of value back. But when you surround yourself around the people that you want to be like, or that you aspire to be like, or, it's contagious.
Right.
It's super contagious. So placing yourself in those uncomfortable moments because you don't know anything. I hated going into Ring when I first left my job, because I just was like, whoa, like everybody here just knows so much, like what am I doing in here? Like, I don't know anything. And it probably took like 4 months of me going in, talking to the same people. I'm much more of an introvert. I like smaller, intimate settings rather than like a big room of people. Yep. I don't enjoy working the room. So I would say that, that was uncomfortable for me. For some people, it might not be, but it's getting in the areas that people are actually doing. Yeah.
Yep. And learning and asking questions and building the relationships. I definitely am an introvert. I prefer smaller settings.
Yeah.
It is very uncomfortable for me to get in large groups. Ring has gotten a little easier because I know more people there, right?
Yeah,
but
same. Yeah.
At the beginning, like I won't go start conversations with people. So if anyone ever sees me out in public, I'm not like, I appreciate if people come talk to me and I can talk to them just fine. But it's very hard for me to go just interject myself in the conversations. Now, my father, on the other hand, is the complete opposite, which I'm envious of people who can just go into rooms and do that.
Yeah.
How can people find you?
Instagram, Facebook. Pilar & Co. is the name of our team. We're brokered by EXP, and that is where you can connect with us. You can message us there, but really social media, Facebook and Instagram.
Do you want to throw out any handles?
It's Pilar & Co.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
For both, yeah.
Okay. And then do you have a meetup? Do you guys still do the meetup?
No, we're not doing it. We're not doing the meetup anymore. Back to the whole idea of like we're a little bit everywhere. We want to be a little bit more focal. And with us growing so much, the team is really our main focus right now.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. I want to be sure to call that out if you did. And there's always another opportunity to start that up if you guys get to that point. Yeah. Right? You guys already have a massive network, and they're not easy to do, but
no, a year and a half. And, it's a lot. It's a lot of, it's a lot of work, and it's for us. It was very much worth it because we did a bilingual, all 100% in Spanish, I should say, and just contributing again back to like what we've learned, what we've experienced, and then sharing, letting an audience know like, hey, this is here, this is out there. And creating that room for them has been a great experience. And
you're putting out some awesome content that I think is hilarious. You're putting out some awesome content, so you'll reach people that way too, and they'll find you through that. But so definitely check out the social media. It's some funny stuff on there to sell some houses.
It's fun. We have to have fun, and I didn't know. Well, I think that the humor from it is that they're a lot younger than me, the team. So I'm like, all right, I gotta get used to this camera thing, and then the Instagram, like, how do I enjoy this? Right? Because I really don't like being in front of the camera and being face forward and all those things. So I was like, okay, let's make this enjoyable so that I don't have to think that somebody's there watching me and all the things. And then everybody else has a good time. So
it seems like it. Yeah. And it turns out well. It's a funny end result. So any final thoughts?
No, thank you so much for the experience. It's so interesting because I don't remember the last time I've talked about myself and my experiences and how I can share that. And I think it's powerful what you're doing because you have so many different individuals that come on and have made their businesses thrive in so many different ways. So I hope it's encouraging to everybody watching that like it just has to be you and nobody else, and take from everybody, pull from it, and then like just Nike it, right? Just do it, but do it your way. Yeah. So it's very motivating.
That's awesome. And that's the reason I do it, because episode has been outstanding. This conversation has been great. And I know there's so many valuable nuggets that people can pull from it. And they're going to find themselves in similar situations that you've talked about in their own life, and rationalizing or trying to do different things, and figuring out reasons why they may have quit something or about to quit something.
Yeah.
And, a conversation like this could keep them maybe think about it for another week or two and hang in there, or go towards the challenge versus run away from it.
Yeah.
Your experiences, sharing them on the podcast is going to help people. And it's awesome for me, just selfishly, to learn more about you and learn from you, and get to know you a little bit better. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was great talking to you.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed myself.
Thank you.
Thanks.